Welcome to the Board of County Commissioners Agenda Setting Work Session for April 30, 2019. And we'll do introductions. I'm John Hutchings, the chair of the board. To my left,
Gary Edwards. Time answer, Commissioner.
Ramiro Chavez, County Manager.
go ahead, Labanita.
Labanita Bovard for the board.
Thomasina Cooper, Assistant to Time Answer.
And the bench.
Robin Kurtz, Executive Assistant. Megan Porter, Public Information.
Here we go. So we're going to review the agenda. We're working from this agenda sheet first. And we'll review our May 7th agenda, draft agenda, and then we'll move all the way down the list.
Commissioner,
Please.
I know that some of you are here for the North Point application. And when we had a discussion last week, the intention was to bring this item for the Commissioner's discussion today. Well, since there has been some elements of the process that have raised puts me in the position to have an executive session with the Commissioners before they make an open conversation on this item. So in front of you, there is a copy of the agenda for today's morning, where we have an executive session, which, as you know, is closed to the public. And the item on the North Point, I will bring that again next Tuesday morning. And that certainly will be open to the public.
Thank you. So moving into the May 7th agenda for next week, we'll call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. here. And just by way of reference, this evening, April 30th at 5:30 p.m., the BoCC meeting will be held in Rochester, not here this afternoon. So May 7th, next Tuesday, we'll call the meeting to order at 2, and then the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Commissioner Ty Menser. And allegedly, we'll approve the agenda and the meeting minutes from today. Then we move right into presentations, and the first one is public defense.
Yeah, next week you will have the opportunity to hear from Jose Vargas. He is a staff member from the Office of Public Defense. Will be introducing the members of the Thurston County Veterans Employee Resource Group, also known as the TC-VERG. And also will be introducing the 2019 Steering Committee executive sponsor, which is Shelley Slaughter, Public Health and Social Services Director.
Okay. Comments or questions?
I don't know what that group is, so I will look forward to that presentation.
That will be a great opportunity, exactly.
Questions
Yeah.
or comments?
No.
Commissioner? All right. The next presentation is Human Resources Public Service Recognition Week.
Yeah, next week is the National Public Service Recognition Week, where you will considering passing the proclamation, having Thurston County participating on the National Public Service Recognition Week, again, this next week. Maria Ponte, the HR director, will be present among many different staff that will give you the opportunity to thank your staff for the job well done.
Anything?
No.
Next is Emergency Services. Kurt Harden's going to talk about the proclamation for EMS Services Week.
Yeah, Kurt Harden, the Emergency Services Director, will be here to present the commissioners and encourage you for the commissioners to proclaim the week of May 19th through the 25th, 2019 as the Emergency Medical Service Week here in Thurston County. Again, this is also a national event.
All right. Anything? Nope.
Nope.
Takes us to item number 1 on the agenda, opportunity for the public to address the board. Are we aware of anything? There's no hot topics going on, is there?
Now, depending on the public testimony you might receive this evening, I will follow up with specific items.
Okay. And then the county manager's update, follow-up that you're working on.
Right.
Then we have item number 3 on the agenda, consent items at this point, A, which is just the voucher list, financial services, and we will get that. And I would imagine this 3-page agenda will spread out a little bit and open up as the week progresses.
We have a public hearing at 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And item number 4 on the agenda, department items, is Public Works interlocal agreement with the City of Tumwater for striping and roadway maintenance.
Just to give you some background, there is many support services that we provide to different cities. For instance, we provide all the striping with the City of Olympia, and we also provide striping and additional services to the City of Tumwater. Back in 2015, we signed an interlocal agreement with the City of Tumwater, which had a 5-year duration, expires next year, 2020. The city requested to avoid or null and void the current agreement because it's too restrictive, meaning they would like the county to provide additional services. And the initial services is how we can coordinate some overlay projects as well as some chip seal projects, and the limitations on the old agreement doesn't give the latitude to the city to access those services from the county. So this interlocal agreement does that. Instead of going for 5 years, it's a 10-year period, and also raises the amount, the dollar amount on the services that we provide to the city.
Anything?
So raises the dollar, so, I mean, is it capped at a certain number of, they pay us for things that we do for them?
Right, because right now, last year, we were in the process of doing the annual overlay program in the county. And certainly there is an opportunity for the economies of scale for them to benefit from the cost by having a larger contract. And it just happened that that agreement didn't have enough capacity and the funding for them to participate on that program. By raising the amount, it will give them the opportunity to participate with the county in larger contracts. Did I answer your question?
Well, I mean, it sounds like that there's an overall limit to how much service they can access. Is that correct?
On the existing agreement, yes. On the proposed agreement, expanded those services.
Is that it? Item number 5, Commissioners and County Managers items. Probably nothing yet.
No.
Okay. And then at 3 p.m., after we adjourn that meeting, we'll move into the public hearing, Community Planning and Economic Development on the Emergency Housing Ordinance interim regulations.
Yeah, this is a public hearing where you receive public testimony related to an emergency housing ordinance. And as you may recall, you said a public hearing related to allow some properties in the county to use as a homeless mitigation plan or properties. See, because right now the code is limited as to how we can use that under this emergency ordinance. You allowed on a temporary basis how those activities can occur in properties in the unincorporated areas of the county. So I have a copy of the ordinance just for your reading pleasure. Certainly, it's not expected for you to take an action at that time because the staff is preparing some revisions for your consideration. So you receive the public testimony next week. The only action that you have available to you at that time will be to close the public hearing. And then we'll follow up with the briefing where you consider the draft ordinance and the proposed ordinance that the staff has available to you with changes. So that is the process on this particular matter. Any questions?
Go ahead.
Have we seen this ordinance already?
This is the ordinance in which you set the public hearing.
Right, but have we discussed that ahead of time?
Yes, we did. It was a briefing prior to the setting the public hearing.
When was that?
Oh gosh, over a month ago. I can give you
Okay.
the exact date if you like.
Okay.
I
But you have another
copies-
copy
I
for
have
us.
copies for you
Good,
today.
thank you.
Okay.
If you like.
Do you have anything?
I think Ramiro answered my questions on that. Thank you.
Yep, look forward to it. Next week, 3 p.m., May 7th, public hearing.
Yeah, and
Got
again, I will encourage you just to close the public hearing because the staff is working on proposed revisions to that ordinance for your consideration before final approval.
All right, so that takes care of the agenda, draft agenda for May 7th, 2019. Now we're going to move into proclamations and awards.
Good morning, Labanita Bomar, clerk of the board. On the proclamations, I have no awards, but the proclamations, we have have reviewed already for the May 7th agenda. That's the Public Service Recognition Week and also the Emergency Medical Services Week. Under boards and commissions, the one application.
Well, hang on, Robin, before we move on to the boards and commissions, let's look at, are there any questions on these two proclamations?
No.
No.
And we have folks that will be here to
Yes.
receive these?
Yes,
Okay, and we'll have sufficient numbers for each of them and such?
yes.
Good, okay, thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's all right, boards and commissions.
The one application we have under consideration is for the Capital Area Regional Public Facilities District. John Grausom. We have reviewed this on April 2nd and April 9th, and I'm waiting to see if you are ready to make the recommendation for appointment.
You may recall this appointment is a regional appointment, meaning countywide. That requires appointment by each of the jurisdictions. And this particular board was created to manage the investment from the Department of Commerce for the Children's Museum in downtown Olympia, as well as the RAC Center in Lacey. Those were the two projects who would receive funding from this source. When you discussed this matter 3 weeks ago, I believe one of the commissioners wanted to reach out to this individual, have a conversation with him. I don't know if that has occurred, but again, all the three jurisdictions have affirmed this appointment, and I will encourage the board to do so, to do the same.
And this is a reappointment, is it not? Because it says here he's been serving on this committee.
It's a reappointment.
So it's a reappoint. And he's in district number 2, but it's regional, so it's not district specific?
No.
No.
Okay.
The appointment is regional. The serving member is from a specific district.
Okay. It just threw me because it looks like a reappointment here, but on the front it's not under reappointment.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions about this applicant?
No, other than that's going to be coming up, right?
So the question for the board is, do you want to set this item for reappointment on next week's agenda?
That's on May 7th?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I just wondered if we were going to do it today. It's got April 30th, 2019.
I was good last time, still good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we cannot amend the agenda for today.
Not today.
Okay.
So yeah, that's 3 thumbs up
Thank you.
for that.
The next item is a reappointment also. It's for the Agriculture Advisory Committee. This is Richard McNamara, who would like to be reappointed. He is the current chair for 2019, and he's been a member since 2015. In your packet, you will find his application and some other information regarding this particular person.
Did his application mention he was removed from the from the Conservation District Board?
His personal application did not mention that.
But the information attached to the application states that. And yeah, he was serving as a member of the Thurston Conservation District. And yeah, and it was removed, although the Mr. McNamara has been serving on this Agricultural Advisory Committee since 2015. He's asking reappointment.
Okay. Any further? Okay. Go ahead.
I would like to support Mr. McNamara for that position.
I've been looking at the email exchange from Deb Bordelon from WSU Extension, Thurston County, and she's just like she's the messenger.
Yes.
There's no endorsement. She's just not endorsing, just facilitating the emails and application, right?
That is correct.
Okay. And he's been serving for how long? 10 years?
No,
Oh, 10 hours a day commitment. How long ago? 20?
2015.
Since 2015.
Okay. Okay. So you need a thumbs up on this as well, or thumbs down?
Whichever you prefer.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, 2-1. So we'll bring this item for your attention next week.
All right.
And that's all that I have other than the current vacancies.
Okay. Questions on the vacancies?
no.
I would just, we have 5 vacancies on the Historic Commission. I just ran into Mr. Rowe yesterday. I believe he's the chair of that commission. He implored us to see if, if we had ideas or thoughts of who would be good candidates to bring them forward. He's feeling like the commission is suffering for lack of participation.
Yeah, where it is?
Historic Commission right there.
Oh, right here, store, okay.
So just want to pass that along and see if we can shore that commission up.
Oh, good grief. 2, 2, and 1. Okay. Yeah, good. Anything else, Gary?
No.
All right. Is that it?
That is it.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Now move on to the PIO check-in and turn to the commissioners, turning to Megan.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I don't have anything to update you on this morning. I know, just a reminder to the public that we're having our BoCC meeting this evening at 5:30 at the Rochester Middle School Commons. And then I'm also finalizing questions for the panel discussion that we'll be holding about water at the Evergreen State College on May 23rd from 4 to 6 p.m. We'll have 3 of our directors there, and Commissioner Hutchings will be facilitating that director panel.
Megan, we need to draft a news release for the potential action the commissioners may take this afternoon on the courthouse and the regional administrative building.
Okay. We'll have that prepared.
So do you have anything for PIO?
No.
Do you have anything, Ty?
Nope.
So tonight, I presume safely that everything's all in order, TCM, cameras, live streaming,
Yes.
all that junk is all taken care of. Go
It's
ahead.
not 100% certain that they will be able to live stream it. They will have their fan, and it's supposed to be able to, but they haven't tested that. And
They,
so the
TCM?
goal, TC Media, yeah. So the goal is to have it live streamed. It potentially may not be live streamed, but the goal is to have it live streamed.
But it's going to be videoed, it'll be
Yes.
captured,
All of that will
historic
be.
event, okay?
Yep. Just like we do all the other commission meetings, it will be recorded. But
Okay.
we will post, if the link, if the live streaming works, we will be posting that directly to our Facebook and Twitter pages this evening, once that goes live, so.
And I may have missed it in looking at the Olympian, but did they print anything that we're going to be down there? BoCC in Rochester?
As far as I know, no.
They have
As far
not.
as I know.
Is that because we did not submit a press release to them?
No, there was notice submitted.
There was?
There was.
There
We sent
was.
a news release. The Nisqually Valley News covered it, and I believe Thurston Talk covered it.
Okay. So Thurston Talk and Nisqually, but Olympia chose not, or have not. Okay.
I know that I did receive a call from the reporter at the Olympian, and her intention is to be at the meeting this evening.
Okay. Yes, sir?
How about the Chehalis paper?
I can look it up and verify which newspapers covered it. And I'll let you know.
Were they given the information?
Yes. We send it to approximately 40 news outlets.
Oh, good grief.
But the Olympian is our official newspaper of this board, right?
Of the county.
Well,
Of the county?
the news release are sent out to
Yeah.
a lot of news outfits, and it's up to their purview whether they want to take that and put a news.
Good way to put it. It's
Piece
up their
on the-
purview
on
whether
their-
they choose to or not.
Yeah, so some they do, some they don't. So the Chronicle was also part of that distribution list,
Yes.
but I don't know if they actually pick it up as a story.
And I'm not speaking for the board, but that just disappoints me that our local newspaper Record won't print that. They're going to have reader boards and advertising down there in Rochester for us as well?
Yes, the school has put it on their reader boards. We've gone down and passed out flyers and put those up at local businesses down there. It's been pretty widely advertised.
Beautiful. I'm looking forward to it. Any support you need from us down there to get set up or anything?
I don't think so.
Okay then.
Yes,
All
Commissioner.
right.
Real quick, how quickly, if the live stream doesn't happen, how quickly can people access those meetings online?
Within a day.
24
Yeah.
hours about, okay.
All right. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
Moving on to public hearing decisions pending. Anything?
No, and again, the North Point application that was scheduled for today has been rescheduled for next Tuesday morning.
Tuesday morning, okay. All right, taking us to legislative update.
I believe this is going to be my last report for the year, and as the legislative session closed on time. And it has been successful for the county in a way, because we received court impact fees of $1,094,000 a year. That includes the supplemental budget for 2019 and the biennial budget for 2020 and 2021. And again, it's $1,094,000 a year. Also, we have received $1,700,000 for the Spurgeon Creek. That is 2 fish barrier projects that we have applied. That's also good news for the county. In terms of the shared legislative agenda, which applies to the county region, the I-5 corridor study that goes from the Nisqually Delta all the way down to south of Tumwater received $2.5 million. The request was $4.5 million, but I believe the 2.5 will give us enough money to continue with the NEPA process. Also, the Lacey Veterans Hub has received $2 million, and this is intended to rehabilitate the current building, which is owned by South Puget Sound Community College. And also, the Agriculture Innovation Park received $1,500,000, and that is the EDC, the Economic Development Council, is behind this project, and this is located in the Tenino area. Related to some of the bills that we have been tracking, Senate Bill 5503, the modifications to the on-site sewer systems, has been signed by the governor, and where he vetoed section number 3. And a briefing is coming up in May from his staff to the board, just to give you the implications of this new law into our code. Senate Bill 5505, that will be the stormwater fees for DOT projects, has been signed by the governor. As I mentioned to you in the past, this has a negative impact to the county of just about $230,000 a year. House Bill 1497, the Foundation of Public Health, was signed by the governor. This is a big achievement by all the public health agencies across the county. However, this doesn't have any specific revenue, but I believe the budget includes at least $1 million that comes to the county, not necessarily all what it was requested.
Could I clarify something there?
Yes, sir.
You said something just now about throughout the county. Did you by any chance mean throughout the state?
Throughout the state, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was my understanding that the final budget had 22 million,
Yeah,
but that had to be shared for very specific purposes.
And throughout the state?
Yeah, so
Yes.
the initial request was 100 million to meet the minimum baseline of public health activities. The governor included $20 million, so apparently it's a $2 million difference from what the governor proposed. It represents to the county just about $1 million.
About $1 million to Thurston.
Yeah,
Okay.
additional. House Bill 1074, which raises the age to 21 to purchase tobacco and vaping products, has been signed by the governor. Senate Bill 5986, tax on the vapor and heated tobacco products, that bill died. A substitute House Bill 1087, that's the Trust Fund for Healthcare Employees, has been signed by the governor. Substitute Senate Bill 1563, that's the wrongful dead, has been signed by the governor. And I have been appraising the commission as to the impacts of this particular bill, not necessarily directly, but perhaps on our rates when we secure liability insurance. Substitute Senate Bill 5380, the opioid use disorder treatment, has been signed by the governor. Substitute Senate Bill 5720, the treatment and evaluation of juveniles while in custody. The bill is dead. The substitute Senate Bill 5063, the prepaid postage stamps for election ballots, has been signed by the governor. and this includes revenue to that. I believe it's close to $90,000 a year. House Bill 1441, financing of local infrastructure, that is dead. Substitute Senate Bill 5812, the affordable housing, ADU units, that bill is dead. House Bill 1406, impose a local sales tax credit against the state sales tax for affordable and supportive housing. That has been signed by the governor. That's a good news. In substitute House Bill 1767, the public records reporting, which ease some of the reporting requirements to local jurisdictions, has been signed by the governor. House Bill 1743, the prevailing wages, also has been signed by the governor. In substitute Senate Bill 5272, the sales tax for 911, which increased the 1/10 of 1% for that effort, which still have to go to the public, has been signed by the governor. I will be having a meeting with the executive director of 911, where he's going to make an argument as to when the commissioners may consider put this on the ballot. And lastly, House Bill 1829, the Veterans Assistance Levy. I still have a question on this because it was included as part of the budget, but I still have a question whether that made it through. No, it didn't?
No, legislative staff determined that it was not a bill necessary to implement the budget because it had no impact on the state budget.
So that
is dead.
Dead. That would have been a $500,000 benefit to the county, so apparently it's not. And that is my report.
Yes, sir.
Senate Bill 5812 on the ADUs. Are we still moving, I see that did not pass. Are we still moving forward with an ordinance adjustment?
Yeah, that continues on in terms of, this is a development code adjustments. That is still, that's a county effort.
I just learned last night that another one of the bills that we weren't tracking that passed was a bill that doesn't allow political action committees to funnel money to other political action committees and therefore hide the source of the contributions in campaigns. I like to call that the Time Enter bill, since I was the victim of that in the last campaign. But one of the League of Women Voters representatives let me know that passed.
Oh, I did, okay.
And I was remiss in taking notes on an upcoming agenda item we're going to talk about, so I missed the last one. House Bill 1829, the Veterans Assistance Levy, has a question mark, not in the budget.
Yeah, that's what Robin said didn't pass.
It did not pass, it's dead?
Correct, it's
Okay,
dead.
thank you. I wasn't paying attention. Thank you. All right, now that moves us on to the commissioner items, and number one is the Community Development Grant Program, CDBG, information.
Yeah, Tom.
Do we have that in here? Do we have that? I had that packet yesterday, but I don't have it in here today.
It should be attached on your packet.
Okay. I had a colorful one yesterday. Nope.
It starts with this.
Yeah.
Right there? You got
Right in
it?
front of me. I was looking for the colorful one again. Anyway, thanks, Romero.
Well, I think they're colorful.
Okay, thank you.
Referred to this.
So welcome to the table, Gary and Tom.
So
Introductions and-
let me give you a little bit of background. This is the Community Development Block Grant, which is coming from the federal government through the Housing and Urban Development, HUD. And the way as to how this is being distributed, it needs to be declared as an urban county. And we qualified this to become an urban county back in 2013, I believe. Within the whole context, the urban county includes the cities of Lacey, Tumwater, and all the south cities, Tenino, Rochester, it's not Rochester, Rainier, Bucota, and Yelm. It does not include Olympia because Olympia qualifies as their own urban city. The way we have been managing the distribution of the money, which goes through a selection process, is on a rotational basis. Every year, we go through and we allocate the assigned dollars to the city of Lacey, and they go through their own process to determine what projects qualified for this particular funding, which each of those projects or each of those jurisdictions need to meet the minimum standards of what they call a poverty level. And I believe right now is at 48%. And the next year goes to the city of Tumwater, which they go through the same process. They entertain applications and go through the selection process to determine the feasibility of those requests. The staff from Public Health and Social Services is the one who facilitates and manages all those grants, and also facilitates with all the cities as to how the money and the projects can be distributed. So on a third year rotation basis is when we have a conversation with what we call the South cities. That will be Rainier, Yelm, Tenano, Bucota. And on this group, which we have an interlocal agreement as well as a memorandum of understanding, the county managers represents the unincorporated areas of the county. We held an initial meeting back in March 28, early in the year, I'm sorry, where we started having the conversation as to how we're going to distribute the money and how what project is going to be funding for this year. So there were two projects that were submitted at that time. It was one, the Bucota water lines. Is a continuation of their project. They're trying to replace some of the existing water lines. And also the Tenano Quarry House. At that time, Yelm did not have any specific request. However, the mayor of Yelm stated that whatever is money remaining out of this process, he will probably can use for the Boys and Girls Club of Yelm. We convened on March 28, 2019, and with the intent to have a final decision as to what projects and the level of funding those projects will be allocated this grant. But also at that time, on March 28th, staff from Public Health and Social Services provided an updated poverty levels across the county based on the census. At that point, the Rochester area, for which I don't understand why, in the last few years never qualified because always was below the threshold of poverty according to the Housing and Urban Development. In March 28, the new data put the Rochester area above the poverty level, which made that community available to access those funds. As a result of that, I suggested to the group that we set aside $250,000 out of the close to $1 million available to fund two projects in the Rochester area. One is what we call the Independence Park, and the other one is Haasfield. As you know, the Rochester area certainly need some recreation activities. So attached to your packet is the meeting notes, the draft meeting notes of the March 28, 2019, which at that point, the mayor of Tenano was not able to attend. However, the mayor of Bucota and the mayor of Yelm were in attendance, where at least my understanding was a concurrence related to the request from the county to set aside $250,000 for the Rochester area. And we also, at that meeting on the March 28th, we agreed to convene on April 25th just to formalize and finalize all the requests. And in fact, we met last week, April 25th, where the mayor of Bucota and the mayor of Tenano were in attendance. The mayor of Yelm, I think he was running late, but he didn't make it to the meeting. And we began the conversation, and at that point, it was apparent to me the mayors had already a conversation as to how this money will be distributed, and they introduced a motion to fund The Bucura water lines, $460,000. The Tenino Quarry for $399,000. To fund the Boys and Girls Club from Yelm, $30,000. To fund the contributions to the CIP for $34,000, and the remainder was given to the county. It was a little bit disappointing for me because it was not an opportunity to have a conversation as to how we can probably reach a compromise. The mayor of Tenino moved to have a vote on this. And as I mentioned to the meeting, that I voted against it. And certainly, the county is going to be outvoted by the mayor's vote, which that's what happened. It was 2-1 vote. But also, I mentioned to the mayors that will be recommending to the board not to support this proposal because never was in the nature or the spirit of the MOU to have a consensus, a conversation as to how this money should be distributed. So this is where we are. Also attached to the packet is this financial information, which gives you a perspective as to how much money each of those jurisdictions have been receiving since 2013. And I'll let you read those, which has been significant. And as you can see on the distribution, the Rochester area has not received any money. And again, because they never qualified under the requirements of HUD. As I stated to the mayors last week, I believe there is my obligation to look out for a community that perhaps has been forgotten for many years. Since they don't have a mayor, they don't have a city council, but certainly have a board of county commissioners and as well as a county manager to lobby for their needs. So that's where we are, and I will open for conversation, discussion that you may have.
Before we open it up for conversations, please introduce yourselves, and if you have anything to add, please add
Yeah, please do.
to that.
Public Health and Social Services. Tom Webster, Public Health and Social Services.
Did I miss anything?
Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you captured it really well. I think that my only comment would be it points to a flaw in our structure of the MOU that determines how those funds are spent. As it is, the 4 small cities can actually shut out anything occurring in the unincorporated areas of the county, like Rochester or Grand Mound, which is also an eligible area.
Or Steamboat Island, anywhere unincorporated.
Any
Yeah.
place that would qualify can be controlled by that block of voting there. So I would just recommend that some consideration be given to changing the structure of that agreement the next time around, which is 2 years away.
Okay, anything, Tom?
But, well, just to follow up on that, but that's why the final decision's here, right?
Yes, that the
To balance those factors that might not have been captured by the mayors.
Do you have anything to add, Tom?
No, just to follow up on Gary's, that the current agreement does run between 2019 and 2021. So that
Okay.
MOU is up for renegotiation, reestablishment in 2022.
So I have a ton of questions, but I'll wait to the end. You started. Do you have any other questions about this?
I have a ton of questions, so I don't know
You
where
have a
to
ton
want
of
to start.
questions?
No, I don't have a ton, but I do have a couple.
That's it?
Yeah.
Just
Okay,
a couple.
go.
When we make this determination, this board gets the final say, so we can adjust it if you were to recommend, I suppose. Is that right?
You know, before I recommend options for you, maybe we can answer the questions that you have, and maybe at the end, if you could give me the floor, I could probably.
Okay, well, one of the things I'm interested in is the city of Lacey and the city of Olympia are about the same size now. So will they, the city of Lacey, also be a standalone entity before long?
That is a good possibility. They will be declared as an urban city. So then we will have a direct allocation of their funds to the city, so they will have to go through the county. So then at that point, then we have to see if we as a county meet the threshold of the population, which I think we still meet that threshold even without the city of Lacey.
Would that mean less money then?
That's
Yes,
what I-
that is less money.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's what
that
I'm
is less
wondering.
money. So in the future, any possibilities to invest on the Rochester area is going to be even less than.
And then if we did allocate the money as proposed by the mayor from Tenino, how long do those jurisdictions have to spend that money?
Well, that's a good question, because on the last round, which we distributed those back in 2016, I believe, the city of Tenino was allocated $215,000, and they have not spent that money yet. So there is a requirement as to how quickly we can spend the dollars, but it's not on an individual project, it's more on the total allocation of the money into the region. So I believe we still, okay, you want to elaborate on that?
It kind of gets into the weeds there, Commissioner, but what HUD does is measure the amount of unspent money we have, and if it's more than 1.5 times what we would normally receive, then they hold money back. And they do that every June or so. They'll give a measurement of the county's progress in spending the federal money that we've been given.
Okay, do we have the let me just do a
Yeah,
quick
go
follow-up
ahead.
here. Do we have the availability to make an adjustment to that, dispersing that money to an entity that's eligible to make sure that we do spend it? And the specific that I'm looking at is we're trying to expand the Boys and Girls Club throughout the county so that we get service to those youth everywhere. And I know that Yelm is in the process of putting that together now, and $30,000, although anything helps, it falls quite short of what they really need. So I'm wondering if this board can reallocate that money to that particular proposal.
What money, I'm sorry? Out of the current
Any
year?
money that is left that has not been spent, that's where I'm curious. Okay, we do have some money left in Tenino that's not been spent. We're allocating more money to Tenino. I don't know if it's going to be spent or not. That's why I asked the time frame. So what would it take to reallocate some of that money without taking away from supposedly other projects that we could help other areas, Rochester being one and Yelm being one, for two different purposes?
A couple different pieces there. First, the Boys and Girls Club would be considered a public service project, and only 15%.
Hey, Gary, can you get the mic right in front of you there, bud? Thank you, sir.
The Boys and Girls Club would be considered public service as a project, and only 15% of the total allocation can be spent on public services. So you couldn't say we want to give 400,000 when
No, but we could do more than 30.
you could do more than.
And in Rochester, we could do a little more.
I
But-
think pulling back money from the existing projects
Award.
might be a bit
That would be difficult.
problematic.
Well, if they haven't spent it, though, that's what I'm trying to figure out with the time element. How does that coincide with if they've done the expenditure that's required?
Right, and we don't even have a contract, for example, for the quarry pool.
Yes, we do.
We don't have a contract for that.
They are actually going out for bid for that work, so it hasn't been spent yet, but that money they went out for bid to
Earmarked.
get a contractor for that. They didn't receive a bid the first time they went out, so they're going out another time to get a bid to rehab, to renovate the town. So that's why the money hasn't been spent.
Robert, do you want to add something to this
No,
immediately? Okay.
Just in general, with federal grants, you've got 2 years to obligate and 3 years to spend. Or 3 years to obligate and 4 years to spend, depending on the federal award. Pulling back money from a project that you've already made a commitment to that's under contract, especially if it's a construction rather than a public service type thing, could be challenging.
Well, I don't know as I'm advocating for that. I just want to make sure that
So,
we do spend it
I
all.
don't think that we have any money from the prior round that was unobligated.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So, first I want to share some information. I had a call from the Bucota mayor on Friday, and I had a conversation with him. He explained to me what their project was. There's these water pipes that are asbestos concrete that have to be replaced, and they're just going chunk by chunk to replace them. Once they get it down to, they're at like 22.5% of these pipes left, they have to get it under 10, which will help them with some regulatory requirements. Even all the projects they proposed would only get them to 12.6, so they're still not quite going to get there, but it would get them closer. He and I had a discussion. I explained, kind of backing what Ramiro said, is that Rochester is in desperate need of a park, and we really was hoping to find an opportunity to do that for them, or find a way to get some upgrades to at least one of their two facilities. He was willing to, if you look at their sheet, he said that there's three pieces to his project. The third one is a $90,000 piece. He said he would potentially he wanted to work with us, and I appreciate him calling to reach out. He said he'd be willing to potentially compromise on that piece so that we could funnel an extra $90,000 to Rochester. But he also, I'm kind of reading between the lines, but I think he also kind of hoped that Tenino would make a similar compromise. I don't know what the various elements of the Tenino project are, whether they can be, whether there's $90,000 worth of that project that could be sacrificed this year in order to try, that would get basically, those two $90,000 chunks would get Rochester close to what Ramiro was shooting for. So that's a possibility. I did not reach out to the Tenino mayor because I wanted to have this conversation with the board first, and maybe see where everybody was at on this. So that's one thing.
If I may relate to that,
Yeah.
That particular item, back in the March 28th meeting that we had, that was the question that I posed to the proponents, where there was an opportunity to reduce the current scope of work. Because obviously the full request was putting the county outside of the running. And I believe at that time was an assurance even from the representative of Tenino that perhaps it was an opportunity to reduce the scope of work, as a result, reduce the dollar amount, which puts the county in a position to maybe access those dollars.
Okay. So there is a possibility. The other thing, though, that I wanted to ask questions about is just these two proposals. The other factor into this is our park impact fees. And I'm interested, Rochester's projects relate to parks. And I'm interested in that as an important priority for that community. But that potentially means that I don't know if there's a way to supplement or to fill those dollars in. If we could, if we could fill that gap with certain park impact fees that we have sitting, and that's a way to get Bucota and Tenino what they need as well, or most of what they need. I'm willing to. I'm not. This was just a means to an end from my perspective. I want to make sure that we use every available resource to get Rochester where it needs to be. The other thing I want to talk about was the Independence Park proposal versus the Haas Field. I'm most interested in the Independence Park because it's right downtown. It's in the core of Rochester, and it's as far as I understand, it's public access. Haas Field, I think, is privately owned, and I don't know what the parameters of public access are to that.
It's a nonprofit organization, so we need to work through the details of that. And just to go back to the comment that you made in terms of using park impact fees, that's part of the financial model to construct both projects, because the request goes beyond the $250,000 available on the CDBG money. So the park impact fees are part of the plan. And also part of the plan is, as you know, we don't have the ability or the staff to maintain additional parks. So it is intended, at least the Independence Park will be maintained by the school district, which is, we have a tentative agreement with that. And if we invest on the Haas Field, it will be maintained by a third party.
Are they willing to then, one of the proposals in Independence, one of the elements in Independence Park is potentially a bathroom. That was kind of an optional piece. If we invested in a construction of that, the school district will maintain that?
Yep.
Okay, well
that's my understanding.
That is absolutely huge. Now, my next question is, what if we didn't have the final authority, or if the board does a different, if the board, for example, adopted the Tenino proposal, mean, what's the capacity of our park impact fees to backfill what we're shorting Rochester through this CDBG process?
That is a question that I need to give you an answer later. I don't
Okay.
have the numbers in my mind.
I mean, if I can, I mean, my understanding was, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm new, but my understanding is that we had sort of a backlog of park impact fees that we couldn't use because of our lack of ability to maintain and operate parks.
Across the county, but what we need to do in terms of the impact fees is has to be by
By
area.
region, right,
By
okay.
region. So that's the question that I have, because you're right, we have on the park impact fees, the fund as itself has capacity, but whether we have capacity for this particular region is yet to be seen.
Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, the Tenino and Bucota projects are important and good projects, and I'd love to support them. And if there's a way to get our regional impact fees to backfill Rochester with a bathroom, which is critical for anyone using a park, young children and taking kids to play at the park, then I'm all for that approach. But I guess there's an unanswered question there. And so there's that. Okay, so thank you for that.
Or old children using the park.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so yeah, my questions were basically, was the Tainana project structured in a way that $90,000 were taken out of it, they'd still be able to productively use the remaining $310,000? Sounds like the answer is probably yes. I wanted to know about impact fees. We're going to get an answer to that. I wanted to know about, could we, again, I'm more interested in the independent, if we have to choose, if that becomes a necessity to choose, I'm more interested in upgrading and doing something really good with Independence Park versus something halfway with Haas and Independence or nothing at all. So that's another option I want to throw out there is to fully upgrade Independence Park, and then we put Haas Field on the short list for the next round. Anyway, those are the ideas that I had and questions I had.
Okay. You got more now?
No, well, I just have a follow-up, but you go ahead. I mean,
I've got a bunch. You do
You
a
got
follow-up.
what?
Do your follow-up. Yeah.
well, it has to do with maybe what we're going to do. It sounds like you told the mayors that you were going to ask us not to support this proposal. Do you have an adjusted proposal that you're proposing?
Probably not till after the conversation, as he said earlier.
Yeah. Okay.
After
So
this discussion.
Yes, I do.
you do.
Yeah, if he does.
And when is that going to come before us?
After Commissioner Hutchins goes through his.
Okay, then just one other real quick. You've got in your notes of the 25th that the mayor of Yelm was late to the meeting and did not attend. I'm just curious, did he get there eventually? Are one of those statements wrong?
Well, the meeting was supposed to be lasting for an hour. And the mayor of Tenino raised to bring this as a motion. They took the vote. So since the mayor of Yelm was running late, he couldn't make to that. So the meeting was extremely short, less than 10 minutes, if that. So that
That
is
takes care of
why.
one of my
Okay,
questions.
so he didn't get there then. So he wasn't there.
He was not there.
Okay.
He was in the parking lot when we left.
Okay, but he didn't have, what I'm trying to figure out is he didn't have any say in what went on here, it sounds like.
No.
Did you have a conversation with the mayor? I mean, is
Well,
he?
and again, the conversation that I had with the mayor of Tenino and Bucota was based on my understanding of the March 28th meeting.
Okay, well, then I'll wait
There was
until
a somewhat
you're
of a tentative consensus of setting aside $250,000 for the county, and the projects submitted by Bucota and Tenino could be reduced in the scope to accommodate that request.
I just want to make a final comment there that I really appreciate the Mayor of Bucota's reaching out to me and wanting to work with us on this, but I feel uncomfortable taking up on his offer if we don't get a similar compromise from Tenino, because that seems to be unfair. So hopefully we can have a conversation with Tenino and work something through that works for everybody.
Okay, so number one, and you kind of addressed it, the meeting only lasted about 10 minutes? Okay, that's short and sweet. It kind of gives me the flavor of the tone of the meeting. Oh, I'm just reading into it. This has been full contact lobbying, because I've been in several conversations with the mayor of Tenino regarding this issue, and he even offered through the RCO the Youth Athletic Facility Grant Program, and perhaps we can leverage some funding there that's but I'm not sure of the timelines, whether it's March had to be the application and May's just, I'm not sure, but don't even know if you've looked into that or if we have, or Parks has looked into that. But he was proffering that as an option, leveraging some RCO money for Parks for Rochester. The MOU, as it sits, it's been a while since I've read it, and I just heard your interpretation, Gary, but is it written that way where the cities can outvote the county or not?
Well,
or is that legal?
It is supposed to be as a consensus-driven decision-making process, but as you know, it was a vote forward your recommendation. But the MOU or interlocal agreement does not take away the responsibility that you have as a legislative authority to approve any funding that comes through the county.
Correct.
That is not even part of the conversation.
So they don't have ownership of the money. It's just the MOU and the process.
The process.
They believe they have the votes and such. And I don't fault Yelm, Tenino, Bucota. I haven't heard from Rainier. I don't know if you've heard from Rainier, from Bob Shaw or not, but I support them advocating for their cities. That's their job, as is our job to advocate for unincorporated Thurston County as well. So it shows that in the ledger here that Rainier has not received any CDBG money.
Because they're not qualified.
They don't qualify
They
at
have not
all.
qualified for a long time, no.
Okay, so the money we used to fix up their park and stuff came elsewhere. That money came from elsewhere?
Not from CDBG.
Not CDBG, but we helped them with a park down there in Rainier, I thought, about 2 years ago.
Basketball court.
Some doggone thing, yeah.
like that.
Yeah, but that
Okay.
was different. Yeah.
But it's kind of different, okay. And so the staff, I want the public to know that when Yelm, Tenino, Bucota, whomever, when they apply for a project, apply for the CDBG money, what our staff does, the time, not the dollar amount, but the time commitment, and there's money attached to it, the work that our staff has to do to receive the RFP or the request, to process it, to track it, to report back to the feds. What kind of time does that, commitment does that take our staff to do? That we do for the cities, they don't do it for themselves.
No, we do all of that administrative work before, on behalf of the city, on behalf of the county. Each project lasts up to 3 years. There's continuous reporting that occurs annually and
Put your
biannually.
microphone closer. Sorry.
Annually and biannually, there's multiple types of reports that are required by HUD. And we do those reports and report back to you on the status of those grants also.
So for each project, up to 3 years.
Correct.
And there's quite a few projects. So it's considerable staff time and dollars.
Yes, sir.
There we go. Thank you.
But Commissioner Perez, but something, it goes beyond just processing the paperwork and submitting their reports. Just to give you an example, when on the previous cycle, the proposal by the city of Tenino, it didn't qualify under the guidelines of HUD. So what the staff did is engage on a conversation with the administrators of HUD and made the argument that perhaps this has a regional component. So it's not just about processing the numbers, submitting a report, it's lobbying and advocating for those projects themselves. Even in the Bucota projects, it was an innovative idea as to how they can qualify for the water projects by having a survey on a block-by-block basis. So there is more than just a support for a meeting or providing a report. It's really advocating for the projects they have submitted in the past.
All right. And when I totaled up, I was doing the math earlier, over the years since 2013, it looks as if Tenino has received $356,700 in CDBG. Yelm, $744,200. I'm not rounding. Bucota, $571,500. And Rochester has never received a penny, or has unincorporated Thurston County ever received a penny of CDBG funding at all since 2013, the last 6 years?
No.
not a penny.
Not a
Okay.
direct investment.
Okay. And when I look at the poverty level in Thurston County is 11.6 per census stuff. And Tenino is 15.3% poverty level, and Rochester's 18%. And we're talking about stuff for kids, parks. So as strongly as my friends advocate for their cities as the mayors, I'm compelled to advocate for Rochester, for unincorporated, because they don't have a seat of government. We're their seat of government. We're their voice for them. And I will advocate for Rochester. The however is, if we were to come up with another $200,000 to offset what we don't give Rochester through whatever funding we can, and still allow some of these other projects in the other cities to receive some funding, maybe not full funding, I'm all for that too. I'm about compromising and equity. But if there's no way to do it, I'm going to vote for Rochester. But I'd like everybody to receive some piece of the pie. Hey, wait. Let me just make sure I exhausted all my questions before I surrender the floor to you. I'm done. Thank you. Go ahead.
On the Quarry House project, I take it that qualifies because of the regional concept and youth from the surrounding area participate
Beyond the city limits.
Yeah,
And that was the
participate as
argument
well.
that Stop made before HUD.
And that's-
but I'm with you.
Yeah, but that's because Yelm, some time ago, decided not to have the senior citizens prepare their senior fund or their senior meals in Yelm, so that senior meals moved to preparation and service down to Tenino. So it is regional for that reason. But it's not just for the kids; it's for the senior citizens as well, for food. Yes, sir.
When you're ready for a recommendation.
I'm ready.
Do you have anything further?
No.
Here we go.
Certainly, you as a legislative authority, you have the latitude to allocate as you see fit the different funding. My recommendation will be not to do that at this point, and maybe direct me and the staff to go back and have another conversation with the mayors to see if we can have come back to you with a different proposal based on everything what you discussed. And at least that will be in the spirit of cooperation, in the spirit of the MOU. I think that perhaps may be the best alternative at this point. Time is of the essence. We need to have schedule a meeting as soon as possible. And then I'll come back with different proposals. If the proposal remains the same from the mayors, then you have the latitude to change that as you see fit. But at least you have tried.
Oh, they'll have benefit of this conversation. What is the deadline?
We need to have the meeting in the next 3 weeks.
Okay, good. We have breathing room.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that, and with the added addition that we get information about park impact fee capacity, so that could factor into our decision.
It used to be. Do you have anything further?
No, I do not.
Being one of 9 kids, growing up, it was always a food fight, and whenever there was a pie or a cookie, my parents said, whoever gets to cut it gets last choice. Everybody else gets first choice, whoever, right? And so it's the same thing. Now that they've had the flavor of this conversation, you can take it back to them. We want everybody to share this cookie. But if no one's willing to share, we're ready to make the decision, sounds like, one way or the other.
So let's work with Robin to set up a meeting as soon as possible.
I'll get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we're done with that one. It's 10:00, let's call it 10:05. Let's take a 10-minute break, please, for staff, and a bio break, empty out, fill up, and come on back. We'll be back in 10 minutes. That's 10:15. Thank you.
Testing. Testing.
We're going through a little bit of testing on this mic here. Please stand by.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear.
Can you hear me now? I can hear it in here.
Yeah, in
I'm
here,
working
we
on
can
an
hear it.
application for the Chehalis
Testing.
Basin Board.
Testing,
Don't let me forget.
How about if you set it down? Can I hear you?
testing, testing.
Application for the Chehalis Basin Board.
And when they talk directly
No,
into it, it's
me being appointed to it. The Flood Authority will appoint me.
it's not picking up for those listening outside
At home.
audiences.
Okay.
It's, you couldn't hear anything from your.
That's
previous
Shale and Basin
comments
Partnership.
from hearing it.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm trying to get another Chehalis board assignment.
All right,
with
so
all-day
are
meetings.
we streaming now?
Just to make you live.
All right, welcome back. It's still April 30th, and we're going to continue on with the agenda setting and work session, and at least the work session. And we're now to commission item number 2 is reorganization proposal.
Yeah, Commissioners, this is a follow-up to maybe a couple conversations that Robin and I had with you. And attached to your packet is a chart like this that you're familiar with, I assume,
Yes.
where we give you the current structure related to the county manager. And you have option number 1. And the option number 1 was to create a new assistant county manager. And under that scenario, Robin Campbell will look what we call the internal services, and the new assistant county manager will oversee the external services. And this is predicated on not hiring for the director of central services, which was vacated with Martin Casey last year. And option number 2 is a variation of that. It's still taking the divisions within the central services and have him to report to Robin Campbell as assistant county manager. And the other directors and departments will continue to have a direct report to the county manager. In this option, we have create a new position, what we call the operational manager support. That's yet to be defined, the nuances of that position. With the intent it will be carry on the special projects across the county. The last day we talk on this, you wanted to see what would be the financial impact on the 2 different scenarios. So the bottom line, I think, is since this is the positions are paid by all the funds in the county, including to a large extent the general fund, then the impact, I'm going to just give you the impact to the general fund, and Robin can walk you through in more detail as to how that came to be. Under option number 1, which is adding a new assistant county manager, the bottom line impact moving forward will be $98,000 a year to the general fund.
No,
Overall.
Total.
And option number 2, moving forward, will be $43,000 impact on an annual basis.
Total funds.
Great.
That is the total impact. That's not net.
Roughly
Minusing
half.
out.
Roughly half would be general fund.
Right, but when I hear 98,000,
Yeah.
that doesn't take into account the salary savings of not filling central services?
That does take that into account.
It does take into account.
Yes, it
Okay.
does. So the impact to the general fund of option 1 would be roughly $49,000, let's round it to 50. And for the option number 2, full year impact to the general fund would be roughly 25,000, if we round up. This year would be approximately half of that if you made this effective July 1, and it would actually be even less because there's no way we could put all of these changes in place and hire the new people by July 1st. So The impact to the general fund of option number 1 would probably be, my best guess would be in the $20,000 to $30,000 range. Of option 2, the impact to the general fund would be in the $10,000 to $15,000 range. And either of those in our current structure could be absorbed within non-departmental this year. Going forward, we would adjust it for the budget to accurately reflect.
Okay. Gary, any questions?
Well, I've kind of made it clear I want the county manager to be able to succeed on, I mean, we oversee a $300 million budget. So if we're going to, I don't want to lose a lot of money by not paying attention if we could spend another $50,000 and do a better job as far as efficiencies. That's where I'm at. So I just need to know, you know, because the total expenditure outside current expense is going to be around 100, and divide that out, it's going to be about half out of current expense, which is always our biggest problem. So I still need to know what the county manager wants to push forward with, because if it doesn't work, I'm going to hold the county manager responsible.
As you should.
So I need your recommendation at that point, sir. That's where I'm at.
I'm about where he is. I mean, I would defer to you guys. I mean, I needed to know the numbers, but I think either of those financially is reasonable if you can make the case that it's a better organization for the county. So both of you's opinions is what I want to hear, and I'm ready to go.
And what I look at is from a business model, the span of control, supervisor to direct reports, and currently it's like 1 to 19 or something silly like that, which is ineffective. Mm-hmm. And I'm not in favor of burning any employee out for any reason. And this is doable. We've been waiting for the financial impact of it. Now we have it. And yeah, I'm ready to rock and roll. I'm happy with each of these options, but prefer one of the two. So what do you need from us? Thumbs up or direction?
So my recommendation to you is go with option number 2, but let me tell you why.
Yeah, tell me why.
Because option number 1 creates an uneven reporting structure with Robin. Because under option number 1, what you have is directors, such as the Human Resources Director, Information Technology, having a direct report to Robin, and the others are managers of a division. It creates an uneven reporting structure that is going to take us time to resolve that. On option number 2, we don't have that issue. And I think it will give us enough time to resolve and moving forward. And that is why I'm recommending option number 2.
And that's the least financially impactful.
But Robin can have a different opinion, obviously.
Share with us, Robin.
I do have a different opinion, although I do absolutely agree with what Romero says. If the goal is to free up the county manager's time so he can pay attention to the bigger issues and take a more strategic leadership role with the county by having fewer direct reports, then option 2 doesn't do that. I think that option 1 is where the county needs to go, but I don't think we could get there this year. So I guess that I support Romero's recommendation for an option 2, but I would encourage us to move toward option 1 as quickly as we could get there, at least by the beginning of the next biennium.
Can you guys spell out what's the issue of having directors and non-directors reporting to Robin? I don't quite get that. Like, what's that? Why is that problematic?
That you're going to create, and I wish Maria was here too. I think you're going to create a feeling of inequity. One of the questions that I already got was, at what point does someone become a director? What's the definition or the criteria to say someone's a director rather than a manager? Because it's obviously not size of an organization. Pretrial Services has a director and there are only, what, 5, 6 people there. So it's not the size of the organization. Well, then what is it? We think that with the facilities group, the records group, and the ER&R group having managers, and the budget group would be a manager rather than a director, although you could certainly change that title, that you're going to create a feeling of inequity amongst the managers, directors, and we would be right back to addressing do we really need a central services director?
Go ahead, Gary.
Okay, I'm not too concerned on the title. I am concerned on the job description and if it's an at-will employee or not. That's where my concern is, because at-will employees, we can get something done. Otherwise, we've got an ongoing fight on our hands. So you guys figure that out. But I want to make sure that we're an efficient operation. That's where I'm at.
So your appointed directors are at will?
Yes, I know that.
So there's the assistant
But-
county manager and myself.
There's no elected
The
chair, yeah.
managers are not.
I know, but
Correct.
maybe as we make that determination, you're looking for which is which. To me, an at-will employee, I feel more comfortable with that from my role as overseeing this operation.
You have any more?
No,
But I'm inclined to go the first step, if you will, which is the, I don't know, 43,000 or something divided out, and at least get the process going. And at some point, we'll make a determination if we made the right decision based on the outcome.
So I'm looking at the bullets under option 1 and number 2, and what catches my eye is we're moving central services project managers to public works. So we're moving all central services to public works?
No, just the
project
two.
managers.
Project managers.
So the 2 project managers that do large projects, like the oversight of and actually it's 3 when you include the temporary position, the jail expansion project manager, what are the other big projects that are going on?
Well, we have a lot of projects internal. You know, for
Right,
instance,
yeah.
we just went through a big security upgrade project that you approved last year. So all those small projects requires overseeing. And by moving the project managers to public works, at least from my point of view, it creates a consistent culture as to how we are managing projects across the county, regardless of the details. Because managing a project from that high level is the same whether it's a facilities project versus a road project or a bridge project. So it's project management practices that we would like to implement across the county. And that is the intent of this move.
So this is the part of where the details kind of get in the weeds, because there's a kind of a blurred line between the projects that your facilities group will continue to manage and the projects that go to public works with the project managers.
So is central services now county facilities?
Central services is completely disbanded.
It's gone.
Yep.
It just poof.
pieced out.
And we've got 3, they're not offices either, because offices are headed by elected officials.
So how's it pieced out? County facilities, county projects?
You know, what term count? We give them units or?
It probably with divisions, that would be
Divisions,
probably
that's a
the
good
best
word,
way.
yeah.
So where did it go?
So,
Projects to public works, got that.
yeah,
Facilities, county facilities to facilities.
Records,
to Robin.
those would just report to me.
To you,
Records to
okay.
Robin.
Yeah.
And ER&R reports to Robin.
Okay, hang on.
And those are the
Oh, I see it.
major parts of,
Okay,
and then IT, of course,
took
you've already
IT.
spun off.
got that, okay. Now it makes sense. Thought we left someone off here.
We tried to catch all the pieces.
Okay. Because in my head, I was preferring option number 1. But if it's a nice interim step, whether we move to step number 2 or not, we won't know until we test drive it for a while. Then, yeah, it makes sense. I'm okay with 2. What do you think?
I'm good with 2, based on the recommendations.
2? 2? Okay, 3 thumbs
So,
up.
and we'll keep you posted on the details as we go along, and you will see specific items for you to take actions, whether it's a budget or creating a position. So I will remind you of this decision when those specifics come before you.
Okay, and for the people watching at home, that's it. Okay. Next, we're moving on
Well,
to...
could I comment on that?
Certainly.
And if anybody at home does have any questions, I believe this information
So
will
it's-
be
so
available
It is online.
on our online.
It
Okay.
is online.
Good enough.
Everything that you see on every meeting is posted online.
Very transparent. Okay, number 4 is, number 3, public testimony.
Yeah, they received a lot of public testimony last week related to the North Point application. Obviously, I will not be able to answer that because that will be part of your decision if that is the case next week, if you feel in the position to do so. I believe the only one that I need to follow up this afternoon was from Ms. Tina Nielsen, and it was related to a compliance property next to the LP Brown Elementary School. As you may remember, the frustration that Ms. Danielson had is also the difficulty the county has to address of those nuisance properties that are out of code compliance. What makes it more complicated in this case is the current property owner is up to date with paying their taxes. So there is not a violation related to property taxes. And the issue that we have is a code violation. There is just a lot of nuisance and property that has an effect on the kids walking to school. So this is not new, and I will walk this afternoon on the timeline, which we began having code compliance visits back in 2015. Well, that was May. Public health has been involved, has been sending violation notices. At some point, the property owner responded, not as unresponsive. We will continue to go according to the code, the progressive compliance aspects that we need. And at some point, we need to draft a notice of civil penalty. And when we start drafting the civil penalties, there is a financial obligation for the property owner to pay or comply. And if that doesn't pay, then they start putting a lien into that property. And then it gives the commissioners avenues as to what will be the next steps that you need to take.
That's a civil penalty, isn't it? Civil?
Right. So certainly there is many options for you as you as a Board of County Commissioners, a Board of Health. And the ultimate, I guess, option that you may have will be to condemn the property. And but that issue, as I understand, you need to argue that in front of the courts to justify use and necessity or public health issue. And that is a different threshold that we need to go through before the courts, and the judges have to probably give us the authority to condemn that. We will continue to go through this process. I will continue to give you an update on this. And again, we will continue with civil penalties as we move along.
Okay. Gary?
Could we focus this through the Board of Health to get a little faster ability to resolve this. I mean, these kind of things just drag on, and the community cannot understand what is possibly taking so long. So I don't know, we seem to have such a long period of time between the complaint being brought to our attention and being able to solve that. And each one of the steps, if you added up the legal time frames for each one of the steps, it seems like it's a shorter period of time than what we end up with doing. It seems like we keep giving allowances or leeway or what to the property owner that allows this travesty to continue. And about the time some kid gets killed in there or contacts, a needle he steps on or something and ends up with a big problem, we always wait until that develops before we take that affirmative action that the community is asking us to take. So I can't understand why we can't move faster, and whatever it takes, either the Board of Health or Board of County Commissioners, to ask that process be kind of expedited. I mean, I hear from citizens all the time that are kind of being harassed by the county, if you will, over minor issues, and this is a major issue. And the only reason it's not been put on the major level is because, we haven't had the kid raped or hurt or something. Kids are hanging out in there. It's a bummer.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you, Commissioner, but staff is working with the parameters of the code. And what you're talking about is Title 26 of the Thurston County Code. And Title 26 was changed over a year ago, where the commission made the statement that in order to deal with compliance issues, a way to work with those citizens to come up to compliance. So that was changed, and those are the problems in which we are operating under those conditions. So you're right. I don't want to come across that perhaps the changes the commissioner made over a year ago a lesson, but certainly put us in the path of working with those individuals to come into compliance. And that's where so the parameters that we have as a staff is the code. If you would like to change the code.
Did we change the time frame that you could take action in that code?
It was a lot of changes involved in that.
And time frame was one of them?
It was not necessarily time
I don't
frames.
recall that there was a time change.
There was a time, but it was the steps that we need to follow to work with the property owners to have them come back to compliance.
So you're assuring me that we're following all those steps in a timely fashion?
Well, we're doing our best to follow what the code is in a timely fashion.
Well, I just pipe up and say that this property owner is not, if we were working with a property owner, I'm not looking to condemn anyone's property. There always has to be intermediate steps, but it shouldn't take 4 years to get from a complaint to a civil, infraction penalty. And this person's not working with us. They're just MIA. Like, they pay their property taxes. I don't know where they are, but there's no working with anyone. So, this is something that this citizen, hopefully we all understand this citizen's not the Lone Ranger. This is like literally the 12th complaint we've gotten from president of the PTO. It's right next door to the school. I took a look at it myself a couple weeks ago. And so, we need to, I know we're working on a process, but that process has to, and I agree with Commissioner Edwards, that process can't be glacial in its way it unfolds.
Okay, here, can I get in on this?
Please.
Okay. You're kind of hanging your hat, if you will, on the fact that some of these issues were apparently attempted to be addressed last year in a change in Title 26.
No,
is that right?
No, what I'm stating is that we're operating on the changes on the new code under Title 26. Yeah.
Yes, and that was changed last year, right? Something
over a year ago.
2 years ago,
okay,
yeah.
so about a year ago. So
No, 2 years
that
ago.
means that between 2015, when we had our first complaint, 2016, 2017, and partway into 2018, we did nothing either under the existing Title 26, if you will. So I'd like to know why. Why haven't we been able to address this? Okay, we tried to make some changes to Title 26 to make it work better for the community, but we weren't doing a darn thing with what we had to work with before that. So, you know, we had 3 years there that we certainly could have done something if you're saying that we weakened the code.
No, I'm not saying you weakened the code. I'm saying that you changed the code and we operated under the changes of the code.
Well, that's now. What happened 3 years ago during that process?
Because even before it was, the new Title 26 was approved back in 2018, the previous one, in 15. So, and you know, if I don't want to, you know, come across that I'm building excuses, and what can I do? And I think if you direct me to have a conversation with the prosecuting attorney and give you the options, the legal options that you have, then it's up to you to exercise the legal actions.
Well, I'm ready to exercise whatever it takes to do something,
and again,
because I think we're reasonable enough in allowing this much time to have elapsed.
You want to add anything?
You can come up, and I'm gonna chime in. When we had this conversation, when we came into office, it was Title 26 was compliance and hammer, and compliance and hammer, and we said, stop the presses. We're going to work with people. We're not come in and say, you have a violation, bam, here you go. We softened it, so we were working more, or CPED was working more in compliance, working with people, property owners. That was the intent. But here we are now, and so my question is, I'm still trying to deal with, if we worked on an issue for 2.5 years, we're moving too quickly. But if we've worked on an issue for 2.5 years, we're moving too slowly. I'm trying to figure out where we are with that.
Yeah.
But my question is this, good point about the BOH, using up Board of Health rather than BoCC, but when it comes to condemnation, I don't know if the BoCC has more authority or clout, legislative authority, than the BOH. I just want to put it in the right, put the right hat on it before we do something to that extent, because it's major step.
Yeah, and that will be something that we need to have a conversation with your prosecuting attorney. And again, what I state is just my perspective of the process, but I'm not here to provide you legal advice, because that's not my role. And by no means that I want to say just because the board changed the code, we haven't done anything, or perhaps weaken the process. This is a very complicated process. Even before, I like to remind you of the property that I keep using as a very difficult property to address, the Kaiser property along the Kaiser Road.
Okay.
And I don't want to say this is going to be the trend, but it took the county almost 20 years, and I wish Rick Peters was here to tell you the horror stories that we had to go through in order to get where we wanted to be. It was a health issue. It was a code violation issue. It was, in that case, even the property owner, it was lapsing on their property taxes. Everything that it was prime for the county taking action. It took us several attempts to go to court to address this issue. So in this case, I will engage the prosecuting attorney to see what options do you have, and I will schedule an executive session for you to exercise that.
Is there any chance that this board maybe could ask the prosecuting attorney to write a letter to these folks, maybe explaining the potential liability that might exist if some kid does get hurt on that property right next to that school?
And again, allow me to schedule an executive session. You will have the opportunity to work and have a conversation with your attorney and develop strategies. I don't think it will be prudent to develop those strategies in this setting.
Okay, so we have the legendary Josh Cummings here. Do you have something to add to the conversation?
Well, I hope so, a little bit. First off, thank you. Joshua Cummings, the Director of Community Planning and Economic Development, CPED. And I want to acknowledge the frustration from the Board of County Commissioners in dealing with these difficult properties. Know that we experience that same frustration every day. And so understanding Commissioner Edwards' long history on some of these properties, 4 years, 5 years, 20 years at Kaiser Road, we've been on the case for about 1.5 years. And in that year and a half, the Board of County Commissioners has provided us the tools, the clear tools in Title 26. We are learning how to use those tools and those resources. And on May 2nd, this Thursday, we'll be providing an update to the county commissioners in a briefing, an hour-long on Thursday morning, about the compliance process, about Title 26, about the number of successes that we've had with the citizens response group. And then there are these properties, there's about 4 or 5 properties that come into this kind of swirling nexus where some are up on their taxes, some are vacant owners, it's hard to track them down. There are difficult ones that will keep popping up. What we're looking for is to find a process so that when they do come up, this is not going to be the last one that's going to happen in Thurston County over the next decades, right? But it'd be nice to have something that we can hang our hat on, a process built so that when they do come up, we can not be looking one off each time, but that we've got something that we can fall back on. So just know that we hear your concern, we acknowledge it, we're looking to build a process that goes forth, but we've had major successes as well. And so on Thursday morning, you'll hear more about these topics.
That's 9 o'clock in the morning.
Correct.
But my question real quick, have the changes that we made to Title 26, you answered that, but the bottom line, it was helpful to CPED? Did
Yes.
it hamper in any way? It was good changes?
No, the Title 26 update has been helpful. It's clarified not only for us, but also for the citizens on what the steps are. So
And
we're able to go back to it, and it speaks in normal language, right? Sometimes we get stuck in our government lingo, but Title 26 with the updates is clear, it's concise, and we can move forward in the process. But understand the frustration. We've been on the case for about a year, and we're working to utilize the tools that we've just now been given over the last year and work on these projects that have been lingering for many years. So know that we're on it, we're working on it. And I understand that time can be frustrating, but we're not resting on our laurels, we're moving forward, and we look forward to presenting that to you.
So real quick, the changes that the previous board made in, what, a year or two ago, if they weren't helpful, would you have heard that by now?
We discussed the things that were less than helpful during the process of building those changes. And we got the things that we needed to have the correct tools to move forward.
Good answer, okay. Thanks, go ahead, Gary.
Could the county manager possibly get a hold of the citizen that most recently brought a complaint to our attention? At least so it looks like we're doing something for the citizen. And maybe at least let them know we're going to have this briefing, and at least they could come and maybe hear what we're up against. At least let them know we're interested in doing something. It just seems like the bureaucratic process takes forever, and it frustrates me beyond belief.
So my normal approach is I will respond in a public setting this afternoon in terms of her question, and I usually follow up with a phone call if they're not present.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Go ahead, Ty.
Does our process that we're working on involve a difference between folks that engage with us and work with us versus citizens that do not engage with us?
Yes, I guess. We've been given direction from the Board of County Commissioners to let property owners do what they want with their property within code and ordinances. And so when we get into this place where they're violating those code and ordinances, which is what all of these properties are doing, we still want to reach out and work with those property owners, as is stated in Title 26. But when there's no property owner to work with, that's where we come into this place of the discussions about eminent domain and property rights, and that's exactly what we'd like to share with you on Thursday morning, those difficult situations.
And I will follow up with the prosecuting attorneys to see what options, legal options you may have.
And the prosecuting attorneys have been part of this discussion and will be there Thursday morning as well.
That is balanced opportunism. I like it very much. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Anything more on public testimony? Item number 4, commissioner items. Commissioners, do you have any items to bring up?
How much time do you have? Do we have a lot of time, or are we going to go into executive session at some point? And then come
Well,
back
we'll go
in?
into executive session at some point.
Your meeting goes all the way until noon, so.
Till noon, and then we're going to go into executive
No,
session?
no.
Including the executive sessions.
So we don't have a lot of time, sounds like.
We got some time.
I just want to say that the only things on my list were we received 2 letters from the sheriff that had concerning aspects to me that I thought needed
Yep.
discussion.
Yeah,
If
I'll bring
today's
this
not the right
items next Tuesday morning.
Okay.
It's on the agenda.
Both letters?
Both letters.
Thank
yeah.
you.
All right, then I'll defer till then.
Is that on the homeless topic by any chance?
No,
No, it's
What was staffing?
it's on public records request, and it's also on background checks under I-1639.
Yep.
Registering long
And how it's
long
affecting
guns.
staffing in the
Two
sheriff's
different
office.
letters, yeah.
Well, could you include in there, I guess, under commissioners? Well,
Go ahead. No, you got it.
Am I got the floor?
You got the floor.
Commissioners' items. In going back to the sheriff's concerns, I thought that he was making it known to this board that there's kind of like no way in the dickens he's going to be able to deal with a homeless operation on Carpenter Street with his existing staffing. He has the least number of deputy sheriffs per 1,000 population served anywhere in the state of Washington. And the last thing that we need to do is create another ordinance adjustment that takes a situation that has developed, and I'll use Olympia because that's kind of the core of where it's happened. They have allowed this homeless thing to get completely out of hand by their enabling philosophy. And now they're trying to dump it on us over at Carpenter and Martin Way. And that's going to end up impacting the sheriff. And we don't have enough resources in this county to hire deputy sheriffs. So I don't know how we think we can go ahead and add another problem to that situation in trying to come up with a solution for that issue. So I guess in tying in with apparently whatever his complaints were on some other things.
So I would like to just add real quick, I disagree completely that Olympia is dumping any issue on us. Other jurisdictions have asked for assistance. We've offered assistance. We've found a place that might be viable, and we're looking at the viability and putting something together, but I don't see it as any one jurisdiction dumping it on us. But I look forward to those conversations next week then.
Yeah, I had to want to repeat that because we all sat here a couple months ago at our planning session, and all three of us asked for staff to look at mitigation sites to help the crisis in downtown. Our business owners were asking us to do that, and all three commissioners at that time were wanting that process to go forward. So Olympia is not dumping anything on us. We volunteered to do it, and we should volunteer to do it. Secondly, about the sheriff, I've heard the same concerns, which is why I brought up this is basically, this area that we're looking at is across the street from Lacey city limits. And Lacey is willing to work with us on an interlocal agreement that would make Lacey potentially responsible for law enforcement response. No promises, but that's an item on the table, a conversation we need to have, and a great possibility for interlocal cooperation, because we're all mindful of the efforts that the strain this would put on our sheriffs, given the area they've got to cover and the staffing needs that they have.
Go ahead, Romero.
Yeah, thank you, because staff was following direction by the board.
I'll go back to
There
you.
was a desire to look for a mitigation site, which the staff provided options to the board. One was in the Mudman area, and the other one was Martin Way and Carpenter Road. Both properties are owned by the county. And the direction by the board was to see what is it that we can do. And one of the first steps is to, first of all, allow that use on unincorporated areas of the county. And that's what the ordinance that you'll be receiving public testimony is going to do, allowing that use to occur. But if you get to the point of approving this ordinance, that doesn't mean all of a sudden you get into the use of that property for those purposes. Because the next step will be to develop a new local agreement with all the cities involved to determine roles and responsibilities. And I'm going to use the exit strategy, because the county needs to have an exit strategy on that property, because we need to have an assurance as to how that is going to be managed, how it's going to be developed, who's going to pay for it, and how law enforcement response needs to be part of that conversation. So I totally understand your point, Commissioner Edwards, in terms of the resources the Sheriff's Office don't have. But again, we're just following the direction of the board and getting through that process. And from my point of view, without a little local agreement determine the roles and responsibilities and the funding options of law enforcement, that property may not be available because we need to have that structure in place.
No, I'm good.
Good.
Do you have another issue to bring up? We got, the two executive sessions are going to take considerable time, I would think.
Yeah.
So do you have any other issues to bring up?
No, we
Do you
need
have
to
any
get
other
into
issues to
that.
bring up?
No.
Nor do I. So that ends the, work session for April 30, and we're going to shut down now and go into an executive session. Thank you.